Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. So, today is the third episode in the communication series that I'm doing. So, I hope you've gotten a chance to hear the first two episodes. The first one was an intro last week, which was the second episode, was with my good friend Stacy, and we talked about kind of what the right time to communicate with our significant other is and just kind of the right way and the wrong way to do it. And so today, I want to continue, obviously, the series and the topic, but I want to come at it from a bit of a different perspective. So today's focus is more on the kind of the relationship itself and what aspects of a relationship contribute to good communication, kind of the mindset that we need to be in, the way we need to perceive the other person, and how that contributes and kind of builds that groundwork for good communication. So, um, and all of this is leading, so kind of just so you know where I'm going with this. Last week when we talked about time, it's all to create that foundation of like, okay, what is the right way to communicate before we even get into what to communicate about, how to communicate well in terms of what to say, what not to say, your tone, your mood, your all of that. I wanted to build this groundwork first for what is it that you need to be aware of in yourself? What is it that you need to be aware of in your relationship as far as the dynamics between the two of you or the setting around you to even be in the right time and place for communication? And then as we go in the episodes, we'll get into the nitty gritty of what does the actual speaking part look like and sound like. So I really like the topic that we're doing today because it's something that I personally believe really strongly in this, and I think that it's something that's really important in every relationship. You might disagree, and so I'm gonna put this out there from my. It's gonna kind of encompass my personal opinion and my personal experience in my own marriage, but also, and more importantly, my professional experience, my professional opinion based on the couples that I work with and the individuals that I've worked with over the years who have been working through relationship stuff. Because you think, in my job, sometimes I'm working with couples and sometimes I'm working with just the one person that came who's struggling in their relationship, but either the other person in the relationship doesn't want to come to counseling, isn't aware that the person I'm seeing is unhappy, and so they're not involved in this yet. And so this is coming from my professional experience as well about kind of what makes some relationships healthier than others. So the topic, the thing I really believe in, is the idea of having a good friendship at the root of a relationship, at the root of an intimate, romantic, a marriage, dating relationship, engagement, whatever. And the reason that I believe in this so strongly is it kind of makes a difference if you like the person that you're in a relationship with. And so, and you might giggle at that, but I'm telling you, I've seen and worked with people who have been married for years who do not like each other. Like they just, the personality of the person they're married with, they don't like that person. They don't enjoy talking to them. They don't have things in common. They're irritated with them on a regular basis. So they legitimately don't like the other person. You can love someone but not like them. Happens all the time. I mean, sometimes you feel that with family members, right? You love them because you're related to them, but you don't really like them as people. Well, that's going to happen. It's inevitable in certain relationships. But when we're talking about marriage or long-term relationships like that, that's not a great thing to feel. Now, you might have moments of that where the other person does something that really irritates you, and you feel like in that moment you just don't like them very much. But I'm talking about like big picture. If you don't like the person that you're, and just for the sake of this, I'm just going to say marriage, it's just easier, but you apply it to whatever kind of relationship you're in. But if you don't like the person you're married to, that's a problem. And if you don't like them, you're probably not going to make a lot of great choices when you talk to them. You're not going to speak respectfully. You're not going to speak kindly. You might be a little bit more direct or rude or blunt than you would be if you were talking to someone that you actually liked. And you might be thinking, I really do like my husband or my wife, but I still have a really hard time talking to them, or I still am super unfiltered and blunt. So I'm not saying that if you that the only problem is that you don't like each other. You could like each other tremendously and still have communication problems. But I want you to be really, really digging deep right now and asking yourself, do you like the person that you're married to? Do you feel like the person you're married to likes you? Do they enjoy talking to you, or does it seem like they're really not interested in you as a person? Do you like talking to them, or are you really not interested in them as a person? Are they someone that you enjoy going to and sharing things about your day? It doesn't matter how big or how much or little you share, but are there parts of your day that you do enjoy talking to your husband or your wife about? And I want you to really think of this not in a, yeah, sure, I like them. No, like really think about it. Think about your day. Think about the interactions that you have with that person. Do you like the things that they like? Do your opinions seem to match up? And you don't have to have the same opinions about everything. You have to like this. That's just not, it's not possible to like everything the other person likes. And if you do, that might actually get a little bit boring. So it's good to have variety. It's good to have things that you don't do together all the time. It's good to have friends of your own, but it's also really good to have things that you enjoy doing together, movies or shows you like watching together, some kinds of music you might enjoy listening to together, places you like to go, hobbies you like to engage in. It's good to have some of the things that you do be shared with this person that you're married to. And so, I want you to think about that. Is that something that you have in your relationship? If not, is it that you used to have it and just over time you've really gotten busy with kids or work or whatever and you just kind of grown apart, or maybe just don't make time to do those things together? Or maybe you've never had those kinds of things shared, interests. Maybe you've never really had a great relationship with this person out, as a friend. And so now let's break it down a little bit. When I say friend, what does that mean? So, there's your friends that you hang out with. You can go, watch a movie with, have a drink with, go bowling with, whatever. And really, your definition of friend is going to be something that you need to really think about. I'm not going to tell you exactly what that means. I'm going to give you some generalities that typically fall under the umbrella of friendship, and then I want you to really apply it specifically to your life. So when I think of friend, I think of it in the context of a marriage or in a relationship. I think of someone, kind of like I was saying, someone that you look at and you talk to and you have a positive feeling towards them. And I'm not talking about intimacy or anything like that. I'm talking about just as a person, their personality, their character, the beliefs that you share. Like if you were to meet this person, your husband, your wife, you were to meet them today, would they be someone that you would want to be friends with? Would they be someone that you would enjoy talking to? Would they be someone you would enjoy going and having a bite to eat or a drink with? Or would they be someone that you would just really not enjoy conversation with that person? So within that, you can really kind of apply it as much as you want to, or in as much depth as you want to. But it really is about, is this someone that I like talking to? And I don't want you to think that if you don't, like if you're in a relationship with someone, you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I don't like them, or maybe they don't like me. I'm not telling you that you're in trouble at all. I don't want you to hear that. I don't want you to be worried. This is a thing to think about, so that if this dynamic does exist and there is maybe a gap or a piece of your relationship missing, that tells us that that's something that maybe we can work on, and you can work on it. Something that can be developed, something that can be grown and nurtured. But step one is being realistic, being honest, and asking yourself, what is that relationship like for you? So, again, life gets busy. If you have children, if you have jobs, if you have other things going on, you don't get to do all the fun things. I mean, you don't get to go on dates with your significant other spouse. You don't get to always sit down and watch a movie. Like sometimes you're just too busy to do stuff together. But it's so important to give time to your marriage, to the friendship, to continue to build that friendship. And I'm sure you've heard people over time say, whether it's in a movie or a show or a book or article, where they say you need to date your husband or date your wife. Like never stop doing that. And to me, what that means is never stop nurturing that friendship. Never stop nurturing that thing that drew you to each other, the thing that made you like spending time with that person, or made you interested in the things they had to say, or interested in the things they were doing. Whatever those are for you, those are the things that made you interested or drawn or like wanting to spend more time with this person to begin with. And that changes. Obviously, there's that honeymoon phase of a relationship early on, things change, but we do have the capacity and the ability to nurture certain aspects of that. And again, you don't have time to be up until 3 a.m. talking, or, writing the love letters, the cutesy things that you may have done when you first met 20 years ago, or even 4 years ago, 2 years ago. You have other things going on, and your brain, the chemistry, like things have settled since then. You're not in the honeymoon period, but you do have the ability to put time aside to just chat at home, and make sure, instead of, if your downtime includes looking at your phone or watching a show, that's great. But make sure you also create that time for conversation, for quality time, watching a show with your spouse, having a conversation about the day, having a conversation about the kids, whatever, talking about world news, whatever it is that interests you. You have to make time. That's not, if you're a busy person, if you have kids, that time is just naturally not going to present itself. There's too much going on. You will have to make time. And if you're the kind of person that makes time, or if you're not the kind of person who makes time. You don't have to think long and hard about that. You just know that about yourself. And, one thing that I encourage you to think about is, early on, within the first, I don't know, maybe first 5 or so episodes that I did, was an episode about not having time and how that can be used as an excuse. We hide behind it, but making time is a responsibility that we have. If you choose to be in a relationship with someone, then that choice needs to come with a responsibility, which is making time for that person. And it doesn't have to be hours and hours. It can be 5 minutes. It could be 2 minutes. But if you do it consistently, and you show the other person, hey, I'm interested in you. I want to talk to you. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to tell you about my day. I want to share my life with you. That builds on itself, and it grows, and it nurtures your relationship. But if your relationship with your husband or wife is the last thing on your priorities list, I want you to think about that. I want you to really look at yourself and look at how you prioritize things, and think about what you could be doing differently. Because, some things can't change. The kids are going to come first in a lot of things, responsibilities, appointments, work. But, if you've chosen to sit and scroll on your phone instead of having a conversation with your spouse, that. And even if scrolling on your phone unwinds you, you've made time for that. Make time for whatever else. Make time for that conversation with your husband or your wife. And if you know that there's room for growth, today is a good day to change that. It's a good day to grow. So now we bring in that communication piece. So if you've questioned, kind of taken inventory of your relationship, and you've determined that you have work to do on your relationship, on your friendship, then be mindful of that as you're listening to the communication things in every one of these topics, because you have to remember that if you don't have a super strong foundation of a friendship, or a current existing good friendship with your husband or your wife, then communication might be a little bit more challenging. It's still doable, but just have that in your mind, so that when you're frustrated or impatient or discouraged, you remind yourself, hey, there is something that we actually could be working on to nurture this relationship, to nurture this friendship, that's going to make our communication work a little bit more smoothly, or that's going to make us just communicate more easily. And so if you're trying to implement some of these communication things and it's not going really, really well, cut yourself some slack. Try to focus on making time to be together, dating, going out. And if you have the ability, the time, and the money to actually get out of your house, go on a date, go for a walk, whatever, try to do that. Try to shut off the distractions and go do that. And then the more you do that, the easier these communication things become, because it creates this cushion for, like, if you spend positive time with someone, then when something kind of difficult comes up, then there's positive interaction that has happened recently that makes it easier to deal with the more difficult thing. Whereas if every interaction you have is about a difficult subject or an argument or whatever, then it's easier to get snippy with each other. It's easier to get frustrated with each other because there's no positive interaction to cushion that. Whereas if you spend that positive time together and you do fun things together, then when something frustrating comes up, it's possible that it won't be like you won't get to that anger or that hurt or frustration as quickly because your brain is going to be kind of riding a little bit of the high of, hey, we just actually had a really good day together yesterday. Maybe I don't need to take this so personally. Maybe I need to calm down before I say this thing because I don't want to hurt his or her feelings, or maybe they're not actually being mean to me like I think they are. Let me slow down. Let me figure this out. So that's the whole point of why it's also good to nurture your relationship for communication. But now let's say that you do have a really good relationship where you're like, we're really good friends. Then it's about asking yourself, do I talk to this person like I talk to someone that I like? Or do I talk to them like there's someone I don't really like very much? So you might think you have a good relationship, but if you're talking to each other in a way that's not very kind, not very polite, then you might, your behavior may be different than what is actually what you actually think about yourself. It's kind of like when you look at yourself in the mirror and you don't see, maybe that you got hair out of place or makeup wrong, but someone comes up to you and is like, hey, did you know that, you got this? Or, something on the back of your outfit doesn't look right. You can't see it. You think you look fine. Someone comes behind you and they're like, hey, you have something on your back. Let me take that off for you. Like, your perspective may not always be right. You might need someone else to point that out to you. And that's me making you think about it. But you also might think that you're doing it better than you actually are. So pay attention. First is the think about it. And the second is when you're actually talking to each other, take note of how that's actually going. Because you might be really confident that you're a great communicator, but in the moment you might actually be coming across a little rough or kind of be interrupting a lot or whatever. And you can always ask the other person, hey, do I do this well? Am I a good communicator, or do you feel like there's something that I could work on? And if you're both asking each other that, then no one's winning, no one's losing. You're both genuinely trying to be the best communicators that you can in a relationship. But to do that, there has to be safety and trust in the relationship. If you have a spouse that is kind of a bully or is rude and doesn't ever apologize for anything they do wrong, then you probably are not going to want to ask that person, hey, is there anything better I can do? Because they're going to think of all the things that you do wrong. But if you are talking to someone who is really kind and caring person, sees you as a good friend, teammate in this relationship, then they might be more, honest, but also be willing to ask you, okay, well, what could I do better? And if you can have that conversation, gold star stickers for everyone all around, like that is amazing. If you can have a vulnerable talk like that with your husband or your wife and you say, am I communicating well with you? Or are there times where I am interrupting you, or I talk over you, I don't listen well, I get loud, I accuse you of something, or I don't, whatever, don't pay attention, whatever that is. If you can have that kind of talk, I would be incredibly impressed. I think that would be amazing for any relationship. And so kind of going along with that friendship, the way I like to look at it is team, right? So you are a team. You have to be a team. If you are married, then you are coming together to start a family, whether you have children or not. This is now your unit. This is your family. You and this person are a family. And then when you have a home together, you have responsibilities. You have to work together as a team to fulfill these responsibilities. Every family looks different when it comes to this. Some people divide things equally down the middle. Some people have certain things that, I like doing this, I hate doing this, can you take this? Or some people decide based on work situations, if one person works and the other person doesn't, then they divvy the whole home responsibilities differently. So that's up to you, however you want to do that. But you are a team, you are a unit. And when you're not working well as a team, you probably feel that. You probably feel like there's something that's out of balance, that you're maybe doing too much or the other person is doing too little or whatever. And you have to come together and talk about that, because if you don't, it can lead to that silent frustration where you're just irritated because the other person's sitting on the couch while you're doing the dishes. And if you don't talk about it fairly quickly, it builds and it builds and it builds. And before you know it, you have a really, really bad interaction, a bad communication about it, because now you're just angry. You didn't bring it up before, so you got, weeks or days or weeks or months of this built up, and you say a whole bunch of things and it comes out ugly and it leads to a fight. But so talking about something early on is really important. And in that unit, in that team, you both have to make that decision that if I say or do something that frustrates you, or you feel kind of like it's unfair or whatever, please come to me. Please don't passively aggressively say something, sarcastically or, backhandedly. Like, come to me and say, hey, when this happened earlier, that frustrated me. When I was doing the dishes and you were sitting on the couch on your phone and you didn't ask me to help, that frustrated me. It felt like you expected me to do this, or, I was really tired. You knew I was really tired, but you never asked if you could help me with something, and that just felt like you weren't paying attention. Whatever it is, bring it up and try to avoid it building to this broken team. So when you think of team, think of any sport that you like or that you moderately know of. It requires the members of that team to work together. And I'm sure if you watch any kind of sport and you see a team sport where the teammates are not working together, it's so easy to see it, right? If you are a ball hog, or if you don't pass the ball, you don't try to include your teammates in the play or whatever it is you're doing, then you're not a good teammate. If you're always the one taking the shots playing basketball and you're never passing the ball to someone else, that's really visible, not only to your teammates, but anyone watching the game. And then that gives you a certain reputation. You're the ball hog. You're the person that doesn't know how to play well with others. It's all about you. You're always trying to get ahead. You want to be the one to put those, points on the scoreboard. You're just looking out for yourself. That is so easy to see from the outside and from the inside. So now apply this to your relationship. If you are in a marriage and you are constantly focused on how you feel, what you want, what you need, it's going to be really noticeable. If you're tired and your spouse is tired, but stuff has to get done at home, you sit yourself on the couch while your significant other is up doing stuff, and you justify to yourself, well, I'm tired, I don't want to do it. Well, he or she doesn't want to do it either, but it's got to get done. So if they just happen to be more responsible than you are today, or they're less selfish than you are today, that doesn't give you the right to take advantage of it, to just sit there and let the other person do it, because what they're going to do is internally build frustration and resentment towards you, and that's going to become a problem. So everyone in your marriage, I don't know who you are or what your situation is, but I can tell you right now, without knowing you, everyone in your marriage is tired. Everyone in your marriage wishes they didn't have to do household responsibilities. Everyone in your marriage would rather sit down and relax and not have all these things to do. So when you find yourself justifying to yourself that you're tired, you shouldn't have to, or you don't want to do this, you're gonna have to get through that. You're gonna have to suck it up. If you're sitting down and your significant other is up a whole lot more than you do and stuff, just look at that. Ask them, hey, what do you need? What can I do? Hey, I'm sorry. Can you give me, I'm just going to rest for a little bit and then let me do that. Why don't you sit down, or why don't you leave that? I'll take it over later. But follow through. Don't say you're going to and then not, right? So you have to be a good teammate. And if you're a good teammate, then the communication is a lot easier, because then you're not letting things build up. You're not getting to the point where you feel alone in this team and you feel like you're pulling, carrying the team, and the other person really is not doing their part. And then that, by communicating about it immediately, by making sure you speak up gently and kindly about, hey, I'm frustrated, or hey, this isn't fair that you're not doing stuff and I am. Then if you can do that, then you stay on the same page. It's like in a sport, your coach is going to come in and say, hey, you need to pass the ball. If you don't pass, I'm benching you, right? But there's no coach. You are coaching yourselves. You are, if you're listening to this, then this is you trying to be coachable, which is great. You're trying to learn from this. You're trying to get better, but you have to coach yourself. And if you don't have the ability to do it on your own, your coach becomes a therapist. You need to go get coached. You need someone who's going to look at this, observe your interactions, and say, hey, you're being selfish or you're being a ball hog. Obviously, I don't think a therapist can tell you're being selfish, but I have people that I have great relationships with, clients that I've had for a long time. I have a good working relationship with them. I can say, hey, you're a little focused on yourself. You're not noticing that the other person's struggling, drowning, or whatever. And that goes, it gives us something to talk about and we can work through it. But if you can't do this on your own and you're trying and it's not working, you need a coach. Okay? So please remember that. But again, communication. So before we get into how to, other aspects of communication, I really need you to understand this. I need you to understand that there's no point coming up with all these good strategies if you do not have a good friendship, relationship, team, unit, whatever you want to call it. If that doesn't exist in your relationship, you are going to struggle, right? You can think of it on a very, very basic level. Let's say you have a roommate. There's nothing intimate, no relationship other than you were randomly assigned in college together and you're roommates. It can go really well or it can really badly. But when you live in a small space like that with someone, you have to communicate. You have to say, hey, I have an early class tomorrow. Can you please make sure that you're not being too loud tonight because I need to get to sleep early? Whereas if you don't and the other person's up, having friends over, being really, loud, and they don't know that you have to wake up at 6 o'clock, then they're not going to think it's a big deal because all the other nights you were up hanging out with those same friends with them and they didn't bother you. But today, you have a difference and you didn't tell me. How was I supposed to know? And now you're like angry, trying to go to sleep and all that. So roommate situations are the same. But this is beyond roommates. You're roommates in the sense that you live together. You're deeper than roommates because you're married or you're in a long-term relationship. So you cannot expect the other person to know what you need without communicating. You can't expect the other person to just understand what you want and where you're coming from if you don't communicate about it. But it's easier to communicate if you have a good foundation, if you like each other, if you treat each other well, if you take each other into consideration. And that's kind of part of that teamwork is if I know you're on my team, then I'm not going to compete with you. I'm not going to try to one-up you. I'm not going to try to be better than you. At least I shouldn't, right? Now, yeah, we all have to grow on our own and practice our skills and practice shooting, practice dribbling, practice whatever. But at the end of the day, if I'm competing with you as my teammate, there's a problem. We're not going to play well together. We're not going to be successful as a team. And so in your marriage, if you are looking out for yourself, you're not thinking of what the other person needs, then you are going to be unbalanced. So in a team, I want to make sure that I encourage my teammates. I want to make sure that I help them. If there's something I'm better at, well, let me work with them. Let me help them practice. Let me teach them the trick that I learned that really helped me get better at this thing because I want us to work well together. I want our team to win. So in a marriage, it's the same. Hey, what do you need? How can I help you? And if you are focused on the other person, trying to help them, and they are focused on you trying to help you, everyone's needs are met, right? So if you wake up in the morning and you notice that your husband or your wife, forgot to do something, didn't, set up the coffee maker to go out, well, take care of that for them. If their alarm didn't ring when it was supposed to, and you know that they usually are up by this point, hey, go check in. Hey, sorry to wake you up. Your alarm didn't go off. Was this a glitch? Do you need me to wake you up? Think of the other person. Don't just think of yourself. And if you both do that, then you're both being good teammates. You're both nurturing the relationship, and that will help you have a better foundation for good communication, the way you speak, verbal communication, nonverbal communication. All of that is easier if you like each other, if you treat each other well, if you're kind to each other. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I think I hopefully got the point across to you. I really hope you give it some thought and that you can just kind of see where you are at in this in your relationship and individually. All right, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.